Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Jon Pickering in the studio, which I should introduce you, Jon, as either entrepreneur, CEO, business advisor, all of the above, really.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming into the studio. So, Jon, we've known each other for a few years now, and actually Joe Feldman, who was in the studio only a couple of weeks ago, recommended us to start engaging with you. But I want to take you back to your early career, because I looked on LinkedIn, and I'm not taking the piss when I say this, but I looked on LinkedIn and I thought, right, he's done a degree in Hull, mechanical engineering, and then he started in a techie role, in a technician's role. So tell me about how that came about, because was that something you actually wanted to do when you were doing your degree?
No. It's fair. I think it's fair to say I ended up in technology because I wanted a faster paced career that challenged me a little bit more. But if we go back to leaving school, I left school with at six GCSEs. I wasn't particularly academic, I'd say, or driven academically. I think that's probably fair to say with a lot of people of my background, coming from a working class city like Hull. But I got a great chance with a really good employer in the city, take a mechanical engineering apprenticeship, and that's what I took when I left school. So we spoke about it at lunchtime. There was not a lot of it was paper adverts at the time about looking what was available when you left school. Did that and spent a 4-year apprenticeship with those guys in print mechanical engineering. So absolutely couldn't be further from where I've ended up. Did day release at college, 1 day a week, night school, got my OND, HND diplomas during that time. So just grafted hard really to get me so when I was 20 years old, I was a qualified sort of mechanical electrical engineer with a high national diploma. And I decided to ask my employer if they'd take that further and sponsor me for my degree. So that's what I did. And then opportunities then started to open up for me when I was 24 years old, after I'd spent 4 years part-time grafting through my degree, getting more experience. And then I ended up working for National Power, again, looking for the Daily Telegraph on a Thursday when the job adverts came out, looking for new engineering
now, isn't it? Yeah, it's completely different now. No one does that.
Looking for new opportunities, and I found an opportunity with National Power, and it just so happened that one of the guys that I was working with in my night school class worked for them, so it helped me with a sort of gentle intro. Got an interview. I ended up working at a power station after that in Cambridge. So I left Hull on my own with my suitcases. I went to live in Cambridge.
On your own?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
I was 24 years old, yeah. So,
didn't know anyone in Cambridge?
No. It's quite a lonely
experience. Quite a scary move, yeah, really.
Absolutely.
What made you try to do that?
Well, I think it's sort of that thing from when, and I think a lot of people have drifted north to south in their careers, and I see a lot of people in my line of work that have from the north. I think you've got that mentality that's driven in you from an early age to, no matter what you're doing, you're working hard. And I think I've had that sort of instilled in me from my parents. They're both still, I did work hard up until the sort of latter stage of their career, certainly my dad did. And I wanted to better myself. And I thought the best way I could do that, because of the lack of job opportunities in Hull from an engineering perspective at the time, was to get out into the big wide world. And that's when I sort of made the jump into N-Power, as they're known now, but National Power at the time. So
living on your own, 24 years old, moved to a city you didn't know, going to N-Power. And what was it like in those early years there?
Well, so I think I was working double day shifts. So I was working 12-hour shifts, training to run a power station and operate a power station, so I could successfully do that. I successfully passed it.
Put that on your CV.
Operated a power station. So if anybody needs a gas-fired power station running in your community,
call Jon Pickering. Yeah.
But that was a great learning experience. Again, it was something rapidly, something rapid that I had to learn quite really quickly to sort of be able to operate and survive in that type of environment. I did that for a couple of years, but. And I said it to you over lunch. I think one of the things when you do reflect and you talk about mental health, and it's quite a sort of common subject now, and people are more inclined to talk about it and less inclined to sort of keep it to themselves. I think if when I reflect on what I was going through at that particular time, I was quite lonely, I'd say. And that was brought on by the shift patterns, the lack of social time, being able to meet new people in a new city. When I was living on my own, there was one or two people my own age in that work team. And if they might be on shift with me, they might not be. They might, when I'm off work, they'll be at work. So I feel like that's what drove me to looking for a new career. Really? That's when I sort of, at the time, I'd met my wife, not obviously my wife at the time, but my girlfriend, Jane, and then she helped me think about what could come next for me, and offered me the support to quit my job, pay the bills, and then I basically just again worked hard again at home in a lonely environment to get my first Cisco qualification, so I could go and get a job in the city. And that's
so your wife's Jane, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you think you would have? Were you in that place? You sort of said, you were candid, sort of being saying you were lonely, but thinking about your job. Would you have thought about a change of career without Jane's influence? Were you thinking about actually I need to do something?
I was thinking I need to do something different. Yeah. Whether I'd have got into technology was probably one of those things that sort of happened that was quite critical in my life. That I met Jane. She was working in technology in London for one of the big five, and she was doing technical project management. So luckily, could introduce me into people that I could speak to about new careers. Obviously, there's a lot more resources available nowadays to speak about new careers. But at the time, I didn't have that. So I had to look for people that could influence and help me work out what I wanted to do next. But I knew I wanted to do something that was, with engineering, there's one thing it's a constant. It doesn't change that often, mechanical engineering. It's the principles of the industrial age pretty much apply now. So it's not that fast-paced environment that technology is. And I was looking for something that would challenge me more from a learning and perspective, I suppose. And Jane was a big influence on whether it went technology or I just moved on to another engineering role, to be honest.
So once you've decided to make the change, obviously, even in those days, technology was quite vast and quite wide. What were you thinking you were going to do?
So again, technology's changed since that day. But I remember she introduced me to one of the some team leaders within Arthur Andersen, as it was at the time, obviously before the Enron scandal sort of hit and sort of took them down. But there was like server team leaders, network team leaders, network managers, database managers, as it was, all sort of more siloed from a technology perspective back in the day. She introduced me to quite a few of those people over drinks after work on a Friday, invited me into London.
Yeah.
And I got speaking to a few people, and I started to do my own research as well, and liked the sound of network infrastructure and what Cisco was doing at the time around trying to sort of really sort of transform how networks became sort of more the backbone of what everybody did from a working perspective. And so I decided that, look, this time's now. Let's get some qualifications. I can always pivot and change again. I thought if I establish myself, I can always pivot again if I don't like that particular technology path. But that wasn't in my thinking. My thinking was, right, how quickly can I get the first qualification that's going to be relevant to an employer to get a job in?
Because I've done a lot of work for Cisco over the years, and in those days I was placing lots of people in sales roles and in technical roles there. And when you talked about the qualification, that takes a long time, but you did it very, very quickly. So when you said it at lunchtime, I was thinking, no one does it that quickly. Normally sort of like takes 6-9 months or a year while they're working or whatever. Yet you did it in 6 weeks. So how did that happen? Because most people aren't doing that.
Well, it's probably everybody's dream, isn't it? That the girlfriend says, "I'll pay the bills while you have
Thanks, Jane. Well done.
while you have a few months off, and then go and play golf for a few months." But it's just, again, Joe spoke about it on your last sort of podcast. It's not in my mentality to sort of do that. It's how can I compress down the timelines of what I'm doing to make myself more successful. I don't like sponging off people. That's probably fair to say. I don't want to be the person that's receiving from others. I want to be. It's nice to be supported, but you want to repay the faith, don't you? And get on and do it. So I just basically bought the books.
Yeah.
Online resources at the time. There were some sort of command line sort of software online resources that you could buy and download. They weren't great, so I basically put myself into books, practiced exams, and then got myself up into the city to take the exams and luckily passed them first time, and then the rest to say is history. But again, I needed to find a role. But I think that was just at the time when jobs were online and available. So you the old websites of JobServe started to come along around that time, and you could start to search for jobs online. So that made it a bit more accessible for me. Then I could look at a different range of opportunities, which before that in engineering was very much, like I said, the Daily Telegraph or looking in a national newspaper and competing with
thousands of people applying. Yeah, absolutely. So when you got your qualification, did you think, right, I'm going to go to this type of company or that type of company? Or what was your thought process once you got the qualification?
No, for me, look, I'd like to say that I had a plan and a strategy about the type of culture and company that I wanted to work for. I just wanted to get an opportunity with somebody, and I got an opportunity with a company that was subcontracted into Colt Telecom at the time in London. So it was a great chance for me to establish myself in a big infrastructure environment with a big telecoms company with a good culture and a growing and a sort of the new kid on the block from a telecoms perspective, and help them sort of grow their business. It was very much about, it was opportunity driven at that point, and then obviously things can change.